I disagree.
I disagree.
You don't have the right to my opinion.
I'm just trying to save the world, man.
I don't know, maybe.
It's legit.
Can I finish?
Can't fit. Hold on. Fine.
And now, disagree to disagree.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Disagree to Disagree. I am your co-host, Brett, along with my show bro, Jason.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing, pal? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, too. It's been a bit.
It has been a beat. Lovely weather once again in the upper Midwest.
Unseasonably, yeah.
We did have a little bit of a cold spell. Had a little bit of snow, at least by me, last week.
Really?
Yeah, had some snow, about 5 inches.
No, nothing like that here.
Just a lot of rain.
Not even a lot of rain.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so you avoided it.
Been very mild. It's been nice.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I'm generally lucky, Brett. In weather and in life. Who's bringing the show to us today?
Well, that's thank you for asking that, Jason. Jason, this week's episode is brought to you by 2020. 2020, I still have 1 month left. And also brought to you by Libations. Libations, you heard 2020. Start stacking up on me now.
Yeah, we're going to try and put a bow on this turd today, but it's a stinky year.
Yeah, it really is. It took us a long time to get 2020 to try to be a sponsor for us, but once we got them on board, then Libations wanted to follow right suit. So great sponsors this week, and here we go with this week's episode.
And make sure you guys check us out on social media as well. We're at the D2D Podcast. That is the D2D Podcast. The 2 is numerical. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Don't forget, you also can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course, Spotify. So make sure you rate, like, subscribe, and spread the word. We really appreciate all the support, and thank you once again for keeping us going. We appreciate that.
Spread it like COVID.
Wait, I don't know if I want to be associated with that, but okay.
So it's been, like we were saying, it's been a minute since
Yeah, it has been.
We've seen each other. We did a string of these in a row, and then we've had a couple of weeks off for reasons.
Various reasons.
Some of them out of our control. The first reason being that I had I took a COVID test and was awaiting the results. Even though I wasn't feeling bad, we decided to cancel our recording that weekend just out of an abundance of caution.
And I appreciated that. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that was the prudent thing to do.
Right.
It came back negative, so that's
Awesome.
That's fine. And then in the interim, you went deer hunting.
Yep. Annual deer hunting trip with my family and one of my high school buddies. And it's just nice to get back out in the woods and kind of sit and be in a little bit of a solitary environment and just kind of enjoy listening to nature around me and just sort of absorbing that. And as far as the hunting goes, wasn't super successful. Saw a ton of deer, which is great for our property. We've been really trying to work hard to take care of the herd on our property. And it was just nice to be able to spend that time with my family and my friend and feel rested and ready to go and back at it in the real world.
Yeah, it's nice to be in nature anytime, whether you bag a deer or not.
Yep.
So who all goes? Is it your dad, your brother, and your friend, or
Yeah,
what?
this year my dad as usual, my brother as usual, and then my 3 nephews, and then one of my high school friends that I've been friends with for a long time.
And you have various deer stands on the property. What's
Yeah, so you have various deer stands that we've put up over the years, and also you can sit on the ground, find a comfortable stool, and just find a good spot on a field line or on a divider strip in the middle of the field, and even just a log. My brother he's from all the various walking around and hiking and scouting on our property, there's a little rock outcropping up on one of the bluffs, and he likes to kind of go up on there, and he just has his little natural throne, and he kind of gets a view of everything down below him and on the ground floor in the woods. So there's a lot of different places to go, natural and set up by us, like deer stands.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got to spend time with your family, and then you did Thanksgiving with your family.
Did do Thanksgiving with my family. It was just my parents and myself, my daughter and her fiance, and my granddaughter. They were kind of spending time alone this year due to all the COVID concerns. And then my brother, sister-in-law, and my nephews kind of did the same thing and just kind of following suit with everything going on, just trying to limit exposure. But kept in touch and phone calls and conversations back and forth. Had a nice meal with my folks, and that was good. So it was nice to be able to do that. It's always nice to spend holiday celebrations with loved ones.
Yeah, I was all alone this year. My entire family was down in Mexico, and I made tacos.
Mm.
So that was my Thanksgiving.
Switched it up. I like that.
Yeah. They said Thanksgiving was going to be different this year, and I rolled with it.
Keeping with the theme.
But so that's why we've been away. We had a little COVID crisis, and then there was the hunting season, and then there was Thanksgiving. But now we're back.
We are back.
One of the first things we're going to talk about this week, we got a couple of things. I think this is going to be a good show up, actually.
Okay.
I'm pretty excited about it.
All right.
But we're going to get into the coronavirus because it is ever present. It hasn't magically gone away after the election, as some thought it would. I mean, it's all around me now. I had the test a couple of weeks ago that came back negative, but now my student employee is out of the loop. He can only work from home because his roommate is sick, and so he has to quarantine. It's just the presence of it. It feels like it's this lurking thing that's been there for a long time, but it's almost like it's bigger now.
It does feel like it's a little bit bigger now. It's interesting looking at the numbers, what we came out from the summer and up until now, and just the huge amount of surge that we've had in last 3-4 months, especially coming up through the election. A lot of people are trying to take more precautions. I know that the Black Friday numbers were down 52%, I believe, in terms of foot traffic compared to other years. That's one of the numbers that I heard. I think it was on CNBC.
I ordered my stuff online.
A lot of people were doing that this year. It's sort of made Cyber Monday a little bit obsolete with a lot of small businesses trying, but a lot of the major big box stores doing a lot more online presence, and people just kind of gotten used to that over the course of the year. And yeah, so not a lot of people showing up for Black Friday, but the presence is still there in society's mind as terms of COVID and its impact. And there's a lot of people that were saying, I remember hearing in the beginning of the spring, a lot of private conversations I would have for people. I was like, can you imagine if this is still going on by the end of the year? Can you imagine, is the NFL football season going to happen? And now we're at this point, NFL season's happening, and COVID is as strong as ever.
It's stronger. It's, I mean, America's doing such a poor job. I mean, we have 4% of the world's population, and we have 19% of the deaths. As we sit here recording today, we're at about 266,000 deaths. By the time this comes out, it's probably north of 270. It's the numbers are bad. We've been over 100,000 infections for I don't know how many weeks now. The hospitals are at close to capacity. Our healthcare systems are strained. You see these stories of nurses and healthcare professionals. I mean, the emotional and physical and just mental strain of going through this day after day after day, being on the front line, seeing people die, working these shifts, being kept away from your family to keep them safe. I mean, it's unrelenting for them. And then you look out in the world and you see all of this pain. I mean, there's 20 million people that are on unemployment currently, and 12 million of them are going to lose their benefits December 31st when the extended unemployment benefits run out.
Yeah, you're talking about the CARE Act, which was passed back in March, and that basically gave $600 a week boost to unemployment benefits. That expired in July. So the big concern right now is that there's two others.
But there was also, in addition to the $600, there was an additional 6 months of government past your state. That's why people have had unemployment up until the end of this year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. But so people that have been unemployed and have been eating into their savings are about to lose what little money is coming in. And at the same time, the CDC's moratorium on evictions is set to expire December 31st. And the CDC only stepped in when the legislation expired, which I also believe was at the end of July.
So there's two others in terms of the unemployment stuff that are set to expire by the end of the year. That's the pandemic unemployment assistance. That's for self-employed and freelancers. The second one, that's the one that you mentioned. That's the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. That allows states 13 extra weeks of jobless benefits beyond the traditional 6 months or 26 weeks, which is what you looked at. And yeah, the CDC evictions ban, they did a moratorium and they extended that on September 1st. Now, that's set to expire like a lot of these other things at the end of the year around December 31st. So here's the big concern, and I'll let you take it from here after this, Jason, is that the lack of the government assistance leading to the potentiality of renters going into January 2021 with $70 billion in unpaid rent. And I got that on cheddar.com, a news and financial aggregate website, along with some other information from NBC News. So you kind of compile all this thing together, and it feels a little bit like the perfect storm, with the House and the Senate kind of squabbling over $2 trillion and $500 billion. And the $2 trillion, a little bit larger, a little bit more umbrella, not super specific, as opposed to the Republicans wanting to, as it's been quoted in NBC News, a more targeted approach.
Yeah, it's obscene the amount of stuff that's about to come to a head. Not only is the crisis, the pandemic, as bad as it has been, people are about to go off a cliff. They're about to go off a cliff with income. They've already lost their health insurance if they've lost their job. You see the food lines, the food insecurity around this nation. And the numbers that I saw were that lapsing is going to affect 7 million renters or homeowners.
Nationwide.
Mm-hmm. And Congress is doing nothing. Nothing. I mean, you're right. There's been a congressional stalemate since the summer. And there's basically an abdication in the presidency. I mean, he just isn't. This is another example of where Trump could choose to lead, and he doesn't. I mean, he's spending his time being obsessed with election fraud and things that aren't really his job, which just angers me because
and a little quiet too. He's also been relatively quiet since the election in terms of being in presence of the media.
Well, because he doesn't like being confronted with the cold, hard reality that he lost.
And his lawyer's probably telling him, keep your mouth shut until we get this stuff figured out.
Sure. But, before we get to him, which is next, I feel like, America, come on. You can't ask people to not go to work and then not subsidize them. It's just Congress has got to do something. And the fact that they're not doing it in the lame duck just makes me so mad at Washington. So mad.
I 100% agree with you. This is one of those instances where, as someone who leans a little bit more conservative, you're looking at yourself and you're like, the private sector isn't really able to do a whole lot at the moment, or at least isn't willing to. There's a lot of big corporations out there that made a lot of money this past year, and they're not really passing the buck along. So this is one of those situations where the government kind of steps in and helps sort of provide some of those benefit packages that a lot of Republicans and conservatives really historically have been kind of against. But this is one of those situations where I think government can kind of help that situation out. And this squabbling back and forth isn't really solving anything. And this political wrangling that led up to the election, not wanting to do anything. Now after the election, there's all this paying attention to all the various things that happened after the election results. And really, these people have an opportunity to kind of really help out the everyday person, whether you're blue collar or white collar. And it's just so disappointing.
And Americans themselves are disappointing because we could be better about this. As a society, we've risen to much larger things than this, and it feels like there's not the cohesion, and maybe it's because there's not the mandate from the top, and maybe it's just because it's all this live free or die stuff, but we're just not helping our brothers and sisters out, I think, the way we could. And I think the idea that the vaccine is on the horizon, people are just like, I'll be fine, I'll get vaccinated next year. And even if 50 million people get vaccinated every month for the next 6 months, that's going to take 6 months to get 300 million people vaccinated. So it is on the horizon, but things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And it's just maddening. It's maddening. And I'm lucky to have my job. I only had to take some furlough, a little bit of missed pay, but I still have my insurance. I still have, it's easy for me to make my house payment, but I see the pain all around.
We could really use some help from the government, especially from the Congress right now. After January 20th, with the inauguration, potentially, and I only say this potentially just because things haven't been finalized in the Electoral College yet, but with Joe Biden becoming the president and being inaugurated on January 20th, you're hoping, with the Democrats pretty much still in control, no blue wave that happened in the election of the House, and then the Republicans picking up seats where it's about 51 to 48 Republicans in favor. So that's pretty much a split when you think of it in political terms.
Well, no, because 51 is the majority.
Anyway, so with Joe Biden then getting in, you'd like to see at that point the election's over with, let's get to it and get to work. But there's still this period here going through the holiday season and up until January 20th where, in all logical sense of any sort of awareness on their part, they still have the opportunity to get something done and really kind of put a stamp on it in terms of the people that are leaving office and the ones that are coming in. You really want to see them do something. I got to be honest with you. My prediction is that there's nothing going to be done until after the inauguration.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it just, and this again, it gets to, okay, so let's transition into the transition, shall we?
Let's transition.
Because this is why it's modeling behavior is important. And the biggest thing that we're dealing with as a country right now is COVID. Trump is AWOL on COVID. Biden's trying, but he's not president yet. It would mean so much if these men would shake hands in the Oval Office and agree to work together for the good of America, setting aside tribe and showing us some magnanimity. And it's not going to happen. And I just want to know how much longer you think Trump is going to go on this crazy trail of voter fraud. Everything's a hoax. Joe Biden has to justify his 80 million votes like it isn't completely obvious that there was 80 million of us who had enough of him. At what point do Republicans start telling Trump it's over?
Yeah. Well, here's a couple of thoughts, and that's where our meat bet kind of can lead into this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to touch the meat bet first, or you want to really get
I want you
into
to answer my question first, and then we can talk about the meat bet.
You know, he still has the right to legally pursue these, but the Electoral College process has dates and numbers. And the third point, it's super difficult to get anything in front of the Supreme Court. He said as much as of interviews, as of this recording, that his legal team has basically told him this. And with the dates of December 8th, states resolve controversies. That has to be resolved by then. December 14th, electors vote in their particular states. And then by December 23rd, electoral votes arrive in the Senate for the certification of votes. So I think at this point, either he sees the writing on the wall or he continues to pursue the legal process, makes things a little bit difficult over the next few weeks. But then after that, pretty much around Christmas or after, in my mind, he needs to not only concede, but be the bigger man about it, walk away, try to help make this process as smooth as possible. It won't tame or tap down the media's legacy of what they're going to tell everybody what his legacy is. But at least they can say that he left on a more positive note. And
they would love a grace note from Trump. They're always looking for one.
They may be looking for one, but they never really give him the opportunity. And I think that's one of the strategies that the media in large part has had, is kind of keep Trump on the offensive, keep him attacking, keep him in a defensive posture.
Trump's a shark.
That plays into his personality. And I think he doesn't really has the ability to control himself sometimes.
So as of right now, today, you don't think that it's time for Trump to concede?
No, in my opinion, I think he should. I think he should get it over with.
And do you believe there was the voter fraud that he...
Not in widespread indications at all. I mean, you had 41 cases and lawsuits that have been filed, some of which not directly involving Trump, but again, they could affect his overall standing. 27 of those have been denied, dismissed, or settled, or withdrawn. So there's still a few cases that are out there lingering. And in my opinion, the system is going to protect itself.
The system will protect itself, but Trump is protecting himself. And that's so gross on the way out. He's being as unpatriotic as ever because he has his lawyers go on TV and make these outlandish claims that they won't make in court because you can't lie to a judge in court. So it's just he's playing to a certain audience. And I'm glad that you, even though you're on that side of the spectrum, you're not buying that particular Kool-Aid.
There are little instances, and again, just to be on the spot, it's hard for me to pinpoint, but there have been tiny little small examples of weird stuff that has happened. But in the large, as it's been proven in 27 cases that have been dismissed or withdrawn, just to conclude, there hasn't been any sort of evidence presented to the judicial system. I think it's one of those things where they're trying to have it kind of be played out in terms of court of public opinion. But at this point, I think conceding, getting on with the transition process would be in his best nature, but legally, he does have the right to pursue this up until about December 14th.
Sure. I mean, you would think that Rudy Giuliani getting Borated would have been the Rudy Giulianiest thing of the year. And then there was the landscaping Four Seasons fiasco. And then the thing where his hair dye came down his face. I mean, this is not making Trump look good. It's just such a bad look. It's such a bad look.
It'll be interesting going forward whether or not people like yourself on your side of the political spectrum and the media in large and conservatives admittingly will point these same things out in Democrats and liberals in the next 4 years. And I really got to be honest. If the president is listening, I doubt he is. Sir, thank you for your service. Time to concede. Time to be the bigger man and walk out with your head held high. I think it would serve you better in terms of your legacy at this point, and to just walk away from this, again, being the bigger man. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the legal process is going to come up on the Electoral College dates, and then it's all said and done.
It reminds me of the Benjamin Franklin quote after the Constitutional Convention, and they came out and somebody on the street said, well, what have you given us, Mr. Franklin? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Trump phrased the edges of that republic. Norms are there for a reason. You know, America, we talk about the thin veneer of civilization, and America is an idea. It's a perception. And Trump has undermined both our ideals at home and the perception of us on the world stage. And I don't think that that's an insignificant thing. I think that that's something that's going to have long-term damage, because things are only as real as you believe they are. And the idea of America, I think, has really been dragged through the mud these last 4 years. I know you probably don't agree with me 100%, but I would like to think you think a little bit it has.
And I get the points that you're trying to make there, Jason. I can see why he ruffles your feathers a little bit. I'm looking at this a little bit more of a different and an historical approach, in that I think that the Trump presidency in the 4 years that he was in there provided an interesting opportunity to kind of see where the goalposts are and see where the sidelines are in terms of our republic. And I think that's important for us. I think it's important for us to not always have everything go really, really smooth, because then when things go bad, we run around with our hair on fire, not knowing what to do, and everybody sort of wrangles then. And I think the Trump presidency provided an opportunity for people to get more interested and involved into exactly how our political system works, where there are improvements that can be made, but then traditional aspects that must be maintained at the same time. And that's sort of my positive take on that. I think in terms of the world stage, people have thought about the United States one way or another throughout our country's history. I really severely doubt that 4 years of Donald Trump is going to have that big of an impact, because if it does, then there's sort of this admittance on people on the left or left of center that Trump is a much bigger deal than any other person in American history, and I don't agree with that at all. And I think one of the things going into the next administration is they're going to be like, hey, we're not Donald Trump. This is a new deal. So, come back in. Everything's fine now. We're all good over here because we're not Donald Trump. And I think that's going to be something they might reiterate behind the scenes and sort of get back to this kind of where things ended with Obama, looking more to multinational internationalism, globalism. I think that sort of is going to start coming back into the foray, especially when you look at the people that Biden has already appointed to be nominees for certain cabinet positions. They're right along those lines. Real establishment, real Obama era, real Clinton era, progressives, globalists, positive or negative you want to say about it, that's really what they are. And I think everything's really going to be fine, because the media is going to tell you everything is okay. There's nothing to see here.
All right. Well, I hope it's my hair on fire. I guess my summation is I think Trump won't concede. He won't go to the inauguration, and before that, he'll announce he's running in 2024 so he can be a turd in the punch bowl for the next 4 years.
I really hope he doesn't do that.
I think he's gonna.
It'd be dumb.
He needs to get a felony conviction so he can't be president again.
Biden said that he's probably not going to pursue that. So.
Biden doesn't have it's not Biden's job. He's not a district attorney.
Well, no, but he can support it.
Yeah, but it's not his job. You
Correct.
know, like I would love it to
But
get
if the
back to
president says something-
justice not being the president's purview.
While they're the executive branch, they're supposed to enforce and execute the laws.
Yes, but it's not supposed to be the whim of the president. And I
Correct.
think that we've suffered through a fair amount of that.
That's interesting, and I'm glad that you said that, because that can apply to a lot of presidents and a lot of different political spectrums.
Sure.
That's something that you and I can totally agree on, that the president is not the dictator in chief.
And you know who the president could take a cue from? My buddy Brett. Because we had a bet. It was a meat bet. A sweet meat bet.
Here we go.
And it was close. It came down to a runoff. But at the end of the day, even though the Electoral College hasn't certified the votes, Brett conceded. He bought me the most beautiful tenderloin. Not only did he buy it, he cooked it to perfection. and we ate it in communion last night. And I think if the president could be as gracious in losing as you are, sir, this would be a much better country.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't really feel like I lost anything, but I did make a bet. So just to remind everybody, we made a meat bet based on the final Electoral College numbers. For myself, I had Biden at 271 with Trump at 260, calling it the election was going to be very close. Jason had Biden at 335 as to Trump's 203. Jason was basically saying will be a wait and see thing, going to be a process. The current tally and the final results until they're certified on December 23rd, 306 for Biden, 232 for Trump.
You are the stat man. You are the stat man. You are the
It's all
fantasy.
that fantasy football that I've been doing.
You stepped on my thing because I stumbled saying it. You were like, "Oh yeah, I know what
Trying
he's
to
gonna
help
say."
you out. That's what I
know.
do.
Okay, well, we'll leave that in then. Yeah. So, thank you for the meet.
You're
Thank you
welcome,
for the friendship, and thanks for having these conversations, sitting here. I know sometimes I say things that you would like to respond to that you just don't because it's in the interest of moving on, and we don't want to get petty. And you say things that I would like to respond to, and I've gotten better at putting those down as well. And hopefully these are still good give and takes. And I think since this is our last show of our first season, we wanted to do a couple of things, maybe a little out of character. And one of them is I'm constantly assailing Brett about the right, and he's assailing me about the left. And there are plenty of things in our own houses that we're not too keen on. And I think it'd be fun if we took a little time bashing our own team.
I don't know about bashing, but definitely kind of turning the mirror and getting some introspection on each other's parts of where we line in the political spectrum. I think it's healthy to do that. And again, I think that's one of the things to take away from the Trump presidency is that,
Oh, I know. I'm going to own the libs.
I think each political party got them an opportunity to not only have their constituents be more active in the process, but sort of take a look at the parties within themselves. There's a lot of progressives in the Democrat Party that are doing that, and there's a lot of conservatives in the Republican Party that are doing the same. So I think it's healthy to be able to look in and really be self-aware. For me, I do tend to be more right of center. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't like political labels. I have a real big problem with it, and I know it's something that a lot of people like yourself and even yourself constantly want to have a label. But in terms of be specific,
No, I don't identify as a Democrat. I'm also independent,
Okay,
but
cool.
I am left of center.
so I'm definitely right of center. And one of the things to begin with that I wish my side of the political spectrum was better at is messaging. I really feel like that conservatives, Republicans, people right of center are not as good at it as people on the left. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Not in the media. That's sort of the big thing in social media. So my thing is people that are right of center get into the media, get into social media, get into the computer sciences, get into those particular areas of messaging and improve upon it. I think there's lessons that can be learned from how the Democrats and liberals do those kind of things. And it really pisses me off that Republicans are still viewed as sort of the racist party and all this other stuff that goes along with those negative connotations when in reality, in my mind, it's not like that at all because it's all a freedom-based individual, that rugged individualism. And I think that it can apply to so much different varieties of races and creeds and colors. And that messaging, they're just not that good at. And I really wish that they would be better at countering those arguments and really improve upon how they're viewed in the public as a whole.
So this is supposed to be a look inward, but that almost felt like a victim statement. One thing that
Interesting that you said that victim statement when that's not what it is, but all right, go ahead.
I am left of center. I'm very liberal on certain things. I can't believe that there isn't universal health care in this country, and I'm happy to tax corporations and rich people for a social safety net. But liberals, man, there are several good reasons why people dislike you. One of my pet peeves is virtue signaling. I cannot handle when people are this righteous unfriending of people who don't have the same views of them as a performative act, or getting more incensed about something on behalf of somebody else who's not even that incensed about it. It's performative. It's acting like you're a good person instead of being a good person. It's the same problem I have with evangelicals, where it's like their relationship with God is more about them. And I feel like that's the left wing version of it. It's almost as it's a performative self-love that you take as being a good person, but really it's just not helpful, and it's a little bit gross, and I wish that it would stop.
That sort of transitions pretty well into one of the things that I wish that my side of the political spectrum was better at, and not getting into the name calling. I know a lot of conservatives are like, well, liberals call conservatives names all the time. And I'm like, quit participating in it. Just stop it. Like when you throw around words like libtard, sure, I think you might privately think it's funny and you joke about it in your groups. But the problem is that as with most things, some people take too much to heart and they start to project that onto other people. And that does a disservice for us when we're trying to look at ourselves as compassionate conservatives. Are you really being a compassionate conservative when you're getting into name calling like you're in a schoolyard? So like, quit it, stop it, be the bigger person. Don't get sucked into that. And conservatives, especially in the last 4 years of Trump, have really been on the defensive with these kind of things. And in my opinion, rightly so. But don't get sucked into it. Quit with the libtard stuff, that name calling crap.
Okay, so my next one, this is a touchy subject, especially in higher education where I work. But this is something that liberals need to think about. The difference between diversity and inclusion. In my job as a producer of video, I'm often doing marketing materials, oftentimes for schools. The first college that I did this at was a small private college in Minnesota that was 93% Caucasian. Anecdotally, 70% waifish blonde chick. And they had a mission statement, or a marketing ideal, if you will call it such, that their marketing materials had to include 25% non-white. So that's more than 3 times the number of non-white people on campus being represented. It's a small school. There's 4,000 students. So when you're doing these pieces, you're often calling on the same non-white people again and again. And there's this one fantastic young black man, James, who I worked with initially on this video series where we followed a bunch of different students over the course of a couple different things. So I did these 3 little quick videos with James, but James came across so well that they wanted to use him again, which is great because when somebody comes across well, you want to use them again. But then they want to use James again and again. And it got to the point where the same few black people were being asked to do stuff, and they actually came to me and said, this feels weird to me that I'm constantly being asked to be in these things. I feel like I'm being made a bit of a token. And I went back to the people who I was freelance at this point. This wasn't my internal job, but I went back and I told them, listen, I understand your intentions are good, but where the rubber meets the road here, this isn't helping these people. And they say, well, I came here because I saw all these black faces in the brochures, and then they don't see them when they come here. So you can't manufacture diversity. You can have all of the love in the world for all the creeds and colors in your heart that you want, but you can't make things be that aren't. And I think that, sure, there's affirmative action. There was a real necessity for that, and probably still is in certain things, not only racial but gender based. But even that, it has to be kept at the barest minimum for the best possible reasons. I just wish that we would worry more about inclusion and less about forced diversity. Diversity is great, and having love in your heart and openness and tolerance is great, but trying to force diversity, especially just in the places where I've seen the rubber meet the road, it's like the good intentions don't equal necessarily a good outcome. And that's a difficult conversation to have, especially in higher ed. And I don't hear it being had on the liberal side at all. I don't know if it's something that's being talked about on the conservative side either, but it's just something that is constantly a factor in what I do, and I'm constantly made aware of it, and my views on it have changed over time, having seen it happen in my real life.
I think conservatives they do talk about that, and I think they point it out, but anytime that they point out those things, they get accused of being racist. So it becomes one of those conversations that they want to talk about, but we don't talk about because of those kind of accusations. And it's such a, I mean, we worked at the same place on and off doing work together. That's one of the ways that we met. And I saw that too. And it was just kind of a real weird thing. And, you know, good for you for looking at those things. And that sort of is kind of how I feel when it comes to conservatives or Republicans, is that this constant need to legislate morality and what they think is moral and right. And maybe this is the libertarian that's kind of squeezing out of me a little bit here, in that if we want to have rugged individualism and we want to have freedom of choice and freedom of free will, or freedom to have free will, which is better said, then there are things that sort of go along with that. And Republicans and conservatives, I think like abortion and gay marriage are kind of like the big ones. So like, you know, no, and this and that. And you kind of hear liberals go, it's my body, my choice. And I think that tails in really well with, it's my gun. You're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. And there's a similar mentality there, but they're thinking about different things. And I know people are like, oh, you know, you're equating the killing of unborn babies versus my right to protect myself and my family. But
it's
that's
the same mindset.
It's the mindset. It's the mindset. That's what I'm talking about, not those issues specifically. And conservatives constantly want to legislate this morality. And I have a problem with that, because it's not the government's job to legislate what our morals and ethics are. That's up to us on a local, state, or even a personal level when you really break it down. And liberals have a tendency to do this, but conservatives seem to be the firebrand when it comes to that stuff. And I think that's probably why we get labeled as bigots, because people see us as trying to tell other people how to live their lives and in what way. And the conservatives are like, well, liberals do that all the time. And I just wish that if you're going to be having a political stance and a political party in terms of freedom, individualism, free will, free choice, you need to be a little bit more aware of how far and where in the spectrum of life those things fall. Do you stand up for those things, or are you just going to pick and choose where it goes? And that's just something that's just, I don't even really know how to explain how irritating that is for me, because it just feels really hypocritical. And I think it's because I have this attitude, and I always forget which of the founding fathers say this, but I sort of would rather have chaotic freedom versus orderly servitude. I really do, because at least then we're free. It doesn't mean that because certain things are legal, we have to do them. No more than if something, and I know I'm going to get in trouble with this, no more if something's illegal, we have to do that either. And maybe that's just the free mindset, the free man mindset that's so unique in the span of human history that I have. But conservatives and Republicans really need to take a look at themselves, as how much are you going to let your religious beliefs, how much are you going to let your morals and ethics and dictate and legislate that on the American people. And I think then that would allow liberals to kind of show their colors a little bit more. And then people go, oh, wow, they do this. And conservatives, they're just not good at that. They just get sucked into those kind of things because of their religious beliefs and the such.
Well, I think either side trying to legislate morality or any sort of enforced thought, that's not what government is for. I got to say, it was interesting for me to hear you say that conservatives don't talk about the diversity issue because they're afraid of being called racist.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the reasons why we're not talking across the aisle on something like that, because one side is pretty righteous about it, and the other side is afraid of that righteousness. And I think that both could come to the table with like maybe just a little bit different mindset. That was really interesting to hear.
I don't know if it's so much.
Hear you say that.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate that. And I don't think it's so much that they're afraid. I think it's just being labeled a racist, and it's a conversation we should have as a whole, as a society. Just because we're different skin colors and we have different creeds and different religions doesn't mean that we can't all get along and support each other and back each other up as citizens.
I know, for Christ's sake, look at you and me.
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, I think maybe everyone just needs to make a meat bet, and that's where we should have like all of our confrontations come down to.
Yep. It should never rise to anything higher than the level of a meat bet.
Yeah, and I think that's just what it comes down to. I think it's they're afraid. I think it's that label of being a racist, and you know.
All right. Do you have anything else on the docket for
One more
conservatives?
thing
Okay.
from my side.
Okay.
This is something that is it just really makes me friggin' irritated. This constant complaint of the deep state, of the swamp, the bureaucracy
I'm
of it
so
all.
excited to hear you say this.
All right, so here's my take. Yes, I do believe it exists. I believe in all those terms across the spectrum everywhere. I
I'm
believe
getting
it
way less
exists.
excited.
But here's the thing. If you're going to keep bitching about it, start participating in the process. And maybe it's the mindset of the conservative of being free from government that they don't want to be involved in it as a career versus a liberal who wants big government, so they're going to get involved in a career. If you're going to keep bitching about a bureaucracy, then get off your ass and go and work in it. Be in that process. A lot of conservatives bitched and whined through the last 4 years about how there's elements inside the White House and elements in Congress and elements in the judicial branch and all the various military intelligence agencies. There's this deep state, all these people leaking information. Well, maybe if you had more conservatives that were getting part of the process and becoming career-long bureaucrats as liberals are so well done and doing, what's the percentage in Washington? It was like 80-90% of government workers are friggin' Democrats and liberals, and yet Republicans and conservatives constantly complain about it. Well, get off your ass and get involved and get in it. And that kind of goes right back into messaging and activism, all those things they bitch about.
I think you're conflating the population of D.C. with the amount of liberals in government. I mean, that's...
Don't take me at full heart. Look it up for yourself. But in my mind's eye,
sure,
most people working in government tend to be Democrat or liberal.
I don't feel that way.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe that's something we need to look up after the show and we'll tweet. Jason and I post game, they look it up and this is what they came down to. But
well, here's the thing.
Standpoint.
I don't think anybody should be asked whether they're Republican or Democrat while we're working in anything that's not an elected office.
But if conservative Republicans are going to keep bitching about the bureaucracy and the deep state, then get off your ass and get into government positions and get into the bureaucracy and work in those career-long things. I mean, quit it. If you're thinking that they're controlling everything, the only way that that's going to change is if you get off your ass and get in and work in it and be a part of it and be a part of the system, because then you can change the system from the inside. That's one thing that liberals are really good at. They get into the system and they change it from the inside. And then conservatives go, oh my God, the redcoats are coming. The communists are taking over everything. Well, no shit. You didn't get off your ass and you didn't go in there and get a job. So of course it's going to be taken over. So that's something that really bothers me. You bitch about the bureaucracy, the deep state, and the swamp, and then you're like, but I don't want to get into it. I don't want to work into it. Whatever.
All right. Well, this was interesting. This was fun.
There's a lot of things both of our sides can improve upon.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I hope 2021 improves upon 2020 because this has been just a shit show, a dumpster fire, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, there's so many things about it. I mean, you and I both have had family members that have passed during this time period. We had, iconic cinematic figures in the history of cinema, which is something big in our lives, that have passed.
John Prine,
Sean Connery.
But still, this is, outside of that, 2020 is like there's a pandemic and there's hurricanes and wildfires and social unrest and political upheaval. And it's just like exhausting and terrible. And this is the time of year when people normally do, their top 10 lists. And we're thinking about this and it's like, I had a hard time coming up with 3. We were like, okay, let's try and put a bow on this turd.
Yeah.
Let's try to come up with things that we actually liked about 2020.
It was hard for me to do that. I kind of came up with, I know we said 3 things, but I have 4. One of them is this story that you and I have talked about just briefly back and forth. And then I have my 3 things, but it was hard. It really was hard to do that because of so many personal things that happened in my life that sort of weighed me down. But then there were great things that happened. And I think number 1 on my list, can I start?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I know how I like you to start these things sometimes. But number 1 on my list, and this is a personal thing here. So, pardon me for being selfish, is my granddaughter being born.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, that's such a special thing. And
for those of you that don't know, Brett is 83 years old.
I'm not 83 years old. I'm not 83. I look like it, but I'm not 83.
Oh, you don't look a day over 74.
You son of a bitch. But that's probably number 1 on my list, and that's a personal, selfish thing. But then kind of expanding that out, I think another cool thing was that board games really made a comeback in 2020. I mean, granted, the situation kind of dictated that, but that was something that was really huge for me when I was growing up, is playing board games. And it really made a comeback, and I think it was one of those, it ties in that families kind of being forced, but the opportunity, I look at it as an opportunity to come together and spend more time with each other and maybe get to know each other a little bit better. And 3, this is sort of like the naturalist inside of me, the nature loving person. The Tasmanian devil was reintroduced to Australia after 3,000 years. And that happened this year. And I thought, holy crap, if humans can do that, that's a pretty cool thing to reintroduce an animal that's been extinct on a continent for 3,000 years. So I thought that was pretty cool.
So just extinct on Tasmania? Where has it been all this time?
They mostly
World
have been
tour?
on Tasmania.
Yeah, but if they're not there for 3,000 years, where have they been? Did they Jurassic Park them into existence?
No, they've been existing on the island of Tasmania for a while now. And then there's little
Didn't you just say that they reintroduced it to Tasmania?
Australia. The Tasmanian devil.
To Australia.
To Australia.
Sorry, it's just been chilling in Tasmania.
Yes, it's kind of been chilling there, and then
It just makes me think of the
Jurassic Park.
No, it makes me think of the cartoon.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's where the inspiration came from. He doesn't spin in a tornado, though. So,
Okay,
yeah.
well, that's.
But I thought that was really cool because it just has so many implications on science and terraforming and our expansion to other planets, and the fact that we can reintroduce a species that has been extinct on a continent for that long. I think that's just amazing. And I have a couple others. There's that one fun story that I wanted to bring up, but you can go ahead. We can talk about that if we want. We have time for it.
We'll end on the monolith.
Okay. He's spoiling.
Well, you're sure.
Anyway, so what are a few things that
okay,
you
and these
have?
are in no particular order. And yeah, okay, so well, probably the least important of these is I really got a kick out of the Lincoln Project. Anybody that listens to this knows that. I have been saying it, but they know how to own the cons. It's just Democrats should take notes on how to fight conservatives. And I honestly like that brand of conservatism. You can call them rhinos, but I like the intellectual thought behind that type of conservatism. And they're just very good at tickling the 14-year-old boy in me who likes to see Trump get needled.
Ew. All right.
Yes, NAMBLA style.
That makes me think of the South Park episode now.
Yeah. And then, okay, so and this is the actual first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about good things of this year was we have finally elected a female to the second highest office in the land. It's about time. I can't wait until the president is been female. I just think that we really need to shatter these glass ceilings, whatever it is. We need representation in those areas. And I've often joked that men should just step away and let women work it out. But truly, I truly believe that women, given the opportunity, could fuck things up just as good as men. But we should at least,
give them the opportunity.
Give them the opportunity, man. It's well past the time, and so I'm very happy about that, the turning of that historic page. And then on a personal note for me, my third one was I didn't realize that when this pandemic hit, I was sent home to work like so many were, and at first it was weird. It was a weird adjustment. I didn't really like it. But I have found as the year has gone now, and I'm still working at home and probably will into the first couple of months of next year, I'm actually more productive. Not being chained to a certain 8-hour segment of the day allows me to wake up at 6 a.m. and edit if I'm feeling like it. It allows me to do it in the evening. I can't tell you how many times I come home from work and then think about something that I wish I could spend an hour and a half on, but I can't because it's back in the office. So I have found that I've been more productive. I've also, in that time, gotten to spend more time with my dog, which has been great. It's just been, sure, we're alone, but we're together. And it has also made me more fluid. It's easy to get in your rut, in your groove. I've been doing what I do for a long time. I've got ways of doing it, and those ways have been challenged. And it's been fun to see growth in myself. Like you can kind of stagnate sometimes. And I feel like some of the challenges of this year have forced me to grow in ways that were good for me. So, sometimes adversity can be a benefit.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I feel. Like one of the other things that I was real thankful for, I thought it was positive in 2020 is this overall sense of self-awareness and introspection that people are sort of having with themselves and getting to know themselves better. I mean, you could say whether or not it was forced or not, and you can bitch about the lockdowns, or you can, support quarantines or whatever. But I don't think we get a lot of opportunities to look within ourselves and really challenge the way we think and challenge the way we feel about the lives around us and the people around us and our thought processes. And I really hope that people sort of seize on that opportunity as much as I think that and hope that we did. But the feeling that I've had from just talking with a lot of people, not just conversations with you and me, but various people in my life, and just the sense of the zeitgeist in news and things like that, is that people really have sort of been looking within themselves. And whether or not that's a good thing or it's something that I'm creating in my mind, I still feel like that it's an opportunity. And I'm really thankful that I've had that. And I'm really thankful that other people have had the opportunity to do that, because I think the moment has passed us. I think things are going to kind of ratchet up and shift into different things. So,
well, I think we're all ready. Ready for something different, right?
Yeah, be appreciative of the opportunity. You get a chance to kind of analyze yourself and get to know yourself a little bit better.
When the plague hit, Shakespeare quarantined and wrote Macbeth and King Lear.
Yeah,
so you can do more than watch Tiger King.
It's funny, some of the lists, because I was struggling for a while this past week to think of this stuff. One of this on someone's list, they were like, Tiger King brought us all closer together. I'm like, I haven't seen it. It sounds stupid as hell, but okay.
You haven't seen Tiger King?
I have no desire to see that.
Oh my God, dude, you've got to see it.
I never liked that stuff on 2020 and Dateline. Those
it is
the murder porn, as they call it.
It's
sometimes.
not murder porn. It's something else. And Carol Baskin, she murdered her husband.
Well, I don't know anything about it.
We can all agree on that.
I'm not going to cast aspersions on something I have no idea or no knowledge of.
Well, should we end on your fun?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the coolest friggin' stories of 2020, in my opinion. So the Bureau of Land Management in Utah, as they routinely do in keeping track of wildlife in a lot of different states. In Utah, they were doing helicopter flights in really remote areas to kind of check the goat population, mountain goat, or other various animals and things like that. And so they're flying over a really remote part of Utah here. I mean, there's no houses, there's no people living there. I mean, this is the wilderness of Utah. And all of a sudden, this one guy spots something reflective and shiny. Well, they land the chopper and come down, and they find this monolith that's sitting in the middle of friggin' nowhere. And people started to sleuth this on Google, and they believe it's potentially could have been installed between October 2015 and August 2016. So it was out there for like 4 or 5 years, and nobody knew anything about it. And then these guys come along, they stumble upon it, and they find it, and nobody knows who put it there. It's put there illegally, by the way. And now, just within the last couple days, it's gone. It disappeared. Somebody came out and took it, or the aliens came down and zapped it up, and they left a little triangle kind of metal plaque or whatever in the ground where it stood and piled up some stones around it. That's it, and it's gone now.
I had not seen that it disappeared.
Yeah.
It's very 2001.
It's so creepy and funny, and it's just awesome. It's just awesome that somebody did that.
I have a friend on Facebook who a couple days ago was like, all right, everybody, it was me. I did it. I did it in November of blah, blah, blah. But, that's so great. It's so great to know that humans are capable of that as well.
And just the mystery of it. It's just fun to have a little interesting mystery.
Yeah, no, I just love it when art can be, it's not an installation. It's not necessarily a Banksy, but it's, it confronts, it forces you to think about something.
I hope the artist comes out who
you.
did that, and I hope they prove that they were the ones that did it. They deserve credit for it. I think the reason that they don't want to is because the legal ramifications of putting that up there. It was not supposed to be there. It's illegal to do it. But come on, Utah, just let the person be. Leave them alone. Maybe give them like a little fine.
There's so much BLM land out there. The people putting pretty things up. Come on.
And BLM is Bureau of Land Management. All you conservatives, calm down now.
Yeah, no, it's just black people all over Utah.
That's what it stands for?
It's the forced diversity of these fucking liberals. Brought a full circle. Brought a full circle for you.
Made me clap there, dude. I think that's the first time I've clapped while laughing on the episodes.
Okay, well, this has been good, and this is our last episode
for the season
of the season, and we'll be back in January.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll be back. But this has been fun. And I think when we do come back, we'll still talk politics and stuff, but we kind of launched this during
During election cycle.
during an election cycle,
Yeah.
and we were kind of beholden to that. But I think some of the things we're looking forward to talking about in season 2 will be maybe a little bit more philosophical, or, this and that.
Interesting things of the odd.
Conspiracy theories.
Maybe.
They're
fun.
That is the one thing that the viewers have said, or the
I know
viewers, the
you've said
listeners,
that. Yeah.
would like us to talk about conspiracy theories. And I love having the conspiracy theory conversation with you. And I feel like that's one that we can do. I really like the conversation, and I know that I've had this with you over the years, is the, humanity, civilization is just a bunch of things we agreed on that don't actually exist, like national borders and money and valuation of things, it's just all built on intersubjective reality. It's not a tree or a river, and it's not a thought in your head. It's this shared delusion, if you will.
Confidence game.
It totally is. But that's fascinating to me, and I would love to get into talking about that kind of stuff.
Just getting into talking about more fun things that are just thought-provoking. I don't know. So, did you enjoy doing the episodes here in this run?
More or less. I think sometimes they were harder than others.
Yeah. I think the schedule sometimes got down on us a little bit. We wanted to try to be current, and we wanted to try to be on top of things. And I think that kind of got to us. I think there was a point where we got a little exhausted.
It got to be a bit of a grind.
Yeah, it really did. But the great thing about it is all the positive feedback that we've gotten from everyone thus far. And please keep doing it. Please keep sharing your thoughts, especially over the season break here that we're going to be coming into over the holiday season. Give us those thoughts. Give us some show ideas that you guys want us to hear. And again, thank you for everything that you guys have done in supporting us. And we look forward to doing more of these conversations. And I look forward to learning from Jason just as much as I hope he enjoys learning from me and you guys learning from us.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to doing it again. I also look forward to having a little break.
Yeah.
Refilling the well.
Yeah, a little bit.
Or the bucket.
And one little homework tidbit going into next season. Look up who or what entity came up with the term conspiracy theory. And then we'll recap that when we come back next season with some really interesting topics.
Ooh. Well, Brett, it's been a run.
Don't forget to hit us up on all the socials at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at the D2D Podcast. Once again, at the D2D Podcast. 2 is numerical.
I love how you say Twitter. You can also find us anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Panera Bread.
Panera Bread. Wow, they got us now.
I think they do that now.
That's
yeah.
awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Panera Bread.
Yeah, you can get it delivered. So yeah, Brett. Until next year.
We'll see each other in 2021, buddy.
I hope the world keeps spinning until then.
Happy holidays to everyone and your families. Love and peace to everyone on Earth.
Yeah, love and peace to yours as well. Goodbye, Brett.
Goodbye, Jason. This episode brought to you by Do Live Crew.
Nasty as they want to be. Hey, we're old.